History of critical race theory. Since the 1980s, critical race theory, CRT, is a conceptual movement and a framework which race is a culturally invented category used to subject people of color and law in legal institutions in the United States. CRT was pioneered by thinkers such as Derek Bell, Left Photo, Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, Right Top Photo, Patricia Williams, Cheryl Harrison, Richard Delgado, and Maria Masuda, Right Bottom Photo. CRT encourages the development of solutions that bridge the gaps in health, housing, employment, and other factors that contribute to wellness. Ford and colleagues adapted this for public health practice. CRT has at least 4 distinguishing characters: race consciousness, ordinariness, centering in the margins, praxis. The framework and the critical race theory concepts introduced here build on the growing public health momentum towards achieving health equity. On the social ecological model, critical race theory fits on the outer structure factors which the 2 arrows indicate.
Critical race theory includes 4 basic features: contemporary racial relations, knowledge production, conceptualization and measurement, and action, which is theory-informed. On the top of this diagram, we have contemporary racial relations, which is the idea that in order to study racism's effect on health, we need to conceptualize racism based on how it operates in the period of interest being studied. Racism is permanent in our society, but the ways in which it operates changes over time. To the left, we have knowledge production, which is about how racialization may shape a project, or conversely, how the project may reinforce existing beliefs about racial groups or phenomena. On the right of the diagram, conceptualization and measurement highlight the fact that place, population, time, and context matter when studying health inequities. Qualitative information and theory are used to describe relationships. And finally, on the bottom, action is about using this knowledge to change causes of health inequities, which can be done through expanding the vocabulary we use to discuss poorly understood racial and power relations, or in using storytelling that is centered in the margins to describe a problem, or by directly challenging identified injustices. The directions of the arrows within this schematic indicate that as a research process, these steps can be taken in different directions as warranted. Now we'll highlight an example of how CRT seeks to improve health inequities experienced by American Indian and Alaska Native populations, which is abbreviated here as AIAN. All of our assigned readings highlight the relationship between CRT and African American populations, so we just wanted to expand upon that to look at another race which holds its own version of CRT. In 2006, this article was published, which outlines tribal critical race theory, which was created specifically for AIAN populations to describe unique historical, political, and social details that contribute to social injustices. It's a theoretical lens used to describe the lived experiences of tribal peoples based on a series of traditions, ideas, and epistemologies that are grounded in tribal histories thousands of years old. We have a link to this article on our references page if you want to read more about the theory itself, but let's get to the health-related example now. The specific health example that we found is this study, which was published in 2015 and examines historical, cultural, and behavioral responses to physical pain. Researchers performed a mixed methods study of 75 American Indian patients to better understand the patient's actual feeling of pain as reported on the Universal Pain Scale, their cultural and spiritual beliefs, and their coping methods. American Indian cultures have a worldview that includes concepts such as balance, life forces, and interconnectedness. They tend to have a holistic view of the world versus the segmented view of Western biomedicine and health delivery systems, which divide the individual into parts for treatment and fail to look at a person in the context of family and community. For many American Indians, family or community members' needs take precedent over one's own personal health needs. Therefore, stoicism is practiced, and pain might not be reported, or moderate to severe pain reports might be understated, and often pain medication is not requested until the patient is physically disabled. It's important for Western biomedical healthcare professionals to be aware that some American Indians use strictly traditional native healing, others use Western biomedicine, and still others use both simultaneously or serially. Researchers found when surveyed, physicians reported that traditional native healing is their least favored of all forms of alternative medicine, and this could explain why some American Indian patients choose not to disclose such information to Western biomedical healthcare professionals. Furthermore, the histories of the American Indian people contribute to their hesitancy due to the fact that indigenous healing practices, such as traditional, spiritual, and ceremonial ways of healing, were actually outlawed in the U.S. Countless traditional native medicine practices were driven underground, and some were lost because they were banned or illegal in parts of the U.S. until Congress passed the American Indian Religious Freedom Act of 1978. This history of racism and predominance of the Western worldview has resulted in maladaptive health behaviors. In this study, less than half of the participants reported that they fully complied with their Western biomedical physician's advice and treatment regimen for management of their pain. Participants shared the reasons for noncompliance, including poor communication with healthcare professionals. They felt the prescribed medication did not work, and they had a desire to use self-care methods. Consequently, this leads to poor health outcomes. Researchers found chronic pain and disabilities underemphasized in the AIAN population, with 50% disabled compared to 40.6% of white Americans, and that American Indians have a higher prevalence of pain symptoms and painful conditions than the U.S. general population. Also, they experience some of the highest rates of disability of any race or ethnic group. It would behoove Western medical health professionals to develop not only an understanding of these culturally different pain responses, but also the historical context of American Indian traditional native healing and cultural practices. This information would allow treating physicians to communicate with patients more fully to provide culturally sensitive and competent care.